Hey, hey, teach me how to DBQ. Hey, hey, teach me how to DBQ.
Welcome back. In this video, we will be discussing everyone's favorite essay, the DBQ. So some things to know about the DBQ. First, the purpose of the DBQ is to test the test taker's ability to develop an argument and support it using relevant historical source material as evidence. But I think DBQ sometimes is misconstrued and students think that it's just about the documents. As we will find out, it's not just about the documents. DBQ counts for 25% of your total AP exam score. So it's hard to do well on the AP exam and not at least pick up a couple of points on the DBQ. You get 60 minutes to complete the DBQ, which includes a 15-minute reading period and a 45-minute writing period. I highly encourage you to at least utilize a significant chunk of that 15-minute reading period before you get into writing. It's really important for students to run your own race. And so if you have a student sitting next to you in the AP testing room who after 5 minutes picks up the booklet and starts writing, don't freak out, don't worry. Use your time wisely, ultimately run your own race. So that 60 minutes is suggested. You get a total of 1 hour and 40 minutes for both the LEQ and the DBQ, and you ultimately get to decide how much time you want to spend on each one. But given the relative percentages of both the LEQ, which is 15%, and the DBQ, which is 25%, you would be wise to spend around an hour on it. Now, the DBQ only covers content from periods 3 through 6, so it doesn't cover any material from periods 1 and 2. Now, that doesn't mean that it will be specific to a single period. So it could cover, for example, period 3 and 4, or it could cover information from period 5 and 6. Now, success on the DBQ really requires the student to blend two things. One, evidence from the source documents. This is a DBQ, and therefore you do need to utilize evidence from those source documents. And one way to think about this is that you're building a sandwich, and the evidence serves as the peanut butter for that sandwich. Really critical that you include evidence from those documents. But it's not just a peanut butter sandwich. There's also outside knowledge that you have to incorporate into the DBQ. And again, this is why I think that the label DBQ misrepresents what this essay is all about. You can score, as we'll find out, as many points by utilizing outside knowledge as you can from actually utilizing the source documents. So I consider the outside knowledge to be a little bit like jelly, in the sense that there's multiple different kinds of outside knowledge that you could incorporate into your essay. And so the outside knowledge will be the jelly of our sandwich. A perfect DBQ essay seamlessly blends those and evidence from those content documents, that peanut butter, with the jelly of outside information, which is it's things beyond the scope of the information provided in the documents. So the DBQ essay is scored on a 7 points rubric. And those 7 points, first in the introductory paragraph, just like LEQ, you need to have contextualization, which is worth 1 point, provides some background information, kind of sets the stage for your essay. And then also in that introductory paragraph, you need to have a thesis, a historically defensible claim that follows a clear line of reasoning. The exact same wording also in the rubric for the LEQ. Then you need to include evidence from the documents in your body paragraph, and those are going to be worth 2 separate points, and we'll review how to score those 2 points. There are 7 total documents in the DBQ, and to get both points, you have to successfully use 6 of the 7 documents. Document sourcing is worth 1 point, and when we source the documents, we take those documents apart by analyzing the significance of the author, the purpose, the intended audience, the time period or the historical context, and then how those characteristics and those factors ultimately bear upon the reliability or the historical truth value of that document. Evidence beyond the document is worth 1 point. And again, this is an example of outside knowledge that you are pulling in, where you have identified maybe some content that's relevant to the answer, but is not provided in the documents. Advanced understanding is also worth 1 point, and there's a number of different ways to get that advanced understanding point, and so we'll be reviewing some of the most common ways. throughout this video and the next. So again, if you kind of think about our peanut butter and jelly sandwich metaphor, the peanut butter is found right here in utilizing the documents successfully and sourcing the documents. That's worth 3 points, but there's also, again, 3 points that can be scored by utilizing outside information. So evidence beyond the documents. I think the advanced understanding point is most likely going to come as a result of your outside knowledge, and also contextualization is based upon your outside knowledge. Now, what's going to hold all this together, this sandwich together? Your thesis, and that's going to be our bread. So points are scored independently. For example, you don't have to get a successful thesis point in order to get evidence from the document points, etc. In terms of errors on all essays in the AP World History test, essays may contain errors as long as the historical content is used to advance the argument is accurate. In other words, these essays are scored on what's known as an asset model. So whatever you put in the essay that is technically correct will count as points. So they will not count points against you if your essay contains any historical errors. Exam essays should be considered a first draft, and thus they can also contain grammatical errors and spelling errors. Don't worry about those. Those errors will not be counted against the student unless they obscure the successful demonstration of content, knowledge, and skills. So don't have to worry about grammatical errors or spelling errors as long as the reader can understand the point you're trying to make. Now the steps, just like doing the Dougie, just like learning a dance, there are certain steps to the DBQ. Step 1 is to read the prompt. So let's pretend that this is our prompt. Evaluate the extent to which the spread of Buddhism transformed Chinese beliefs between 350 CE and 900 CE. All right, so we've read the prompt. What's the next step? Many of you might say, well, let's read the documents, but no, do not read the documents next. The next thing to do is read the prompt again, this time underline identifying the key words. So you can pause the video and maybe take a step to do that. Identify what the keywords in this prompt are. Now, if you ask me what the keywords that I would identify, I would say the most critical word in this prompt is probably this word transformed, because it's informing me, the writer of this essay, that I need to focus on transformations, which is a synonym of changes. And so this is set up very similar to the continuities and changes type of LEQ essay, in the sense that ultimately it's about identifying the transformations of Chinese beliefs that is the result of the spread of Buddhism. Now, it's not just about changes, though. It's important to recognize. Why? Because it says evaluate the extent to which says yes, there will definitely be changes to Chinese beliefs as a result of Buddhism spreading into the region. However, there also may be some things that either stay the same or maybe some resistance to change that we also will be able to identify. The time period usually will be based upon the kind of the layout of the documents. Again, usually document 1 signals the beginning of the time period. So in this case, document 1 is from around 350 CE, and then document 7, the final document, will usually be around the end of the time period, which in this case is 900 CE, and then all the other documents, according to the College Board, will be chronological. Now the next step after you've broken down the prompt is to briefly think about how you could answer the question without any documents. And I think this is a really critical step that a lot of students skip over. But you got to remember, this is not just about your ability to answer a question using the documents. You also need some outside knowledge. And so take that moment to think about, all right, how did Chinese beliefs transform as a result of the spread of Buddhism? Can I answer that question without even looking at documents? And if so, that may give me a purpose then for reading documents, because as I read them, I might have the beginnings of an answer in mind. And if the documents kind of confirm the answer that you had in mind, then you're really in a good shape to write this essay. All right, so the next step is to read the documents. So each DBQ has 7 documents, including 1 visual source. The visual source will be either a piece of art, a map, a graph, a chart, a photo, and it could be any one of the documents. So as you're reading the documents, you want to carefully underline the words that relate to the keywords in the prompt. So underline, identify what are those critical words in the documents that are, in this case, are about how Chinese beliefs transformed as a result of the spread of Buddhism. I highly encourage you to jot down a few words in the margins and annotate and identify what the document is ultimately about. And this is a really critical step because, once you've read document 1, 2, and then you get all the way to document 6, you're not going to remember after you've read document 6 what document 1 is all about. And so instead of having to reread the whole thing or reread the sections that you've underlined, you can just look at your very short, like, again, don't rate even a sentence, just 4, 5, 6 words briefly summarizing what that document is about. But remember, what you write there should also be responsive to the prompt. And so it should be about, all right, what are the transformations that are suggested by this document as a result of the spread of Buddhism? Now pay attention as you're reading the documents to sourcing, because you need to identify at least 4 documents to take apart or to source. And so I usually like to circle the important parts of the source, whereas maybe I'd underline to highlight the important parts of the document that I want to make sure that I'm paying attention to. So the next step is to take 15 minutes to read and annotate those documents. So I'm going to start a timer, and then we'll probably come back with the next video and pick up once the timer is over. Thanks for watching.